Go. Kent, hi. Great to meet you again. And thanks for inviting me over to your place.
You're welcome. Good to see you, Bruce.
Hey, Kent, we're going to be talking about something that a lot of business owners and entrepreneurs who are just getting started in business probably really heavy on their mind. But hey, could you start off by, I know you, but could you start off by telling us about yourself, your business, and then we can go from there.
Yeah, you bet. So I'm an industrial designer by training, and I started my own design consultancy in 1992, and worked as a sole practitioner for 4 or 5 years, and then added some staff, built the business up, and there's now 18 of us. We've got a design center in Quebec City. I'm here in Calgary, and we serve a variety of industries.
We're going to talk about the challenge that business owners have when they're just getting started, and they're engineers or scientists, and now they've got to promote their business. They've got to find leads. They got to present and close and ask for the order.
Right.
And which can be pretty intimidating for somebody who doesn't have that kind of background. So I just really appreciate your advice of people in that situation, getting the business. How many years ago did you get started, and how did you get the ball rolling and get over that sales hump?
Right. Yeah, well, I had a blessing in that I had the place where I was working. I took over 2 clients, so I sort of had a bit of a base as I was moving forward. And not too long after that, I had the wife of somebody I had worked with at a summer job needed some graphic design work done. So that made a connection, and I was able to do a project there, and that sort of opened up a whole new area of business. And that's one of the first examples of, in the company we say that the best marketing is great work, and that the best business is repeat business. So that whole idea of doing a good job and opportunities come, I think that's number one. Now, when I started, to connect with people, there wasn't the internet, and yes, it was that long ago per se. You'd go to some industry events and some networking, and often I think people can complicate it, saying like, well, I need a website, or I need a brochure, I need a business card, and really, I remember Brian Tracy listening to him, and he'd say, none of that will give you a nickel of business. What gets you business is getting in front of people and communicating what it is that you do, understanding their needs, and if you need to take a post-it note and write your name and phone number on it, and that's your business card. So I think so job one is just do it. Get out there and communicate with people. But there's also, it pays to have some methodology and a process to follow. You talked about sciences and engineers. When we do work, we're pretty logical in how we do the work, and sales at the end is a numbers game. The more prospects you speak to, the more meetings you get, the more proposals there are to write, and the more proposals, hopefully, the more business you're closing. And there was a tape series on sales, and it was focused on professional people, so partners in law firms and that, people who do professional work but also need to have a sales role. And he had a very simple system that I found quite helpful, and it was one point for making a phone call, and 2 points for having a meeting, and 3 points for writing a proposal, and 4 points for something that would move the ball down the field to close that work. And his challenge was get 4 points a day. So call 4 people, or write a proposal and call somebody, or make an effort to close a deal. And so I employed that process for many years to just stay active. And
that's like keeping score. Like a baseball game without keeping score is pretty boring.
Right.
And that's really what you're doing.
Exactly. Yeah, and it's a pretty easy system. Often it'd be times, it'd be 4 o'clock, you're thinking about closing down and going, oh man, I'm missing 2 points. It's like, well, I'm going to take this half hour, I'm going to call 2 people, even if it's 2 voicemails. But it's just an impetus to keep that momentum up. And, Bruce, honestly, that some of those lessons come from hard-won experience, right?
Yeah.
In the 2006-7 period, we were very busy, and, so busy I had my head down for 2 years in a project. And then, you pop up, and now your leads are cold, and you're right back into that, having to create leads. So we adjusted things in the organization so that we're always doing things to keep the funnel full. Right?
And that's what you're addressing right there, is the typical problem that practitioners have is the roller coaster of feast and famine.
Yes. Yeah.
That's what you're getting at.
Yeah. And I think, Bruce, so as we grew the business, there are two things that mattered there. One was how we did work. So after that period, I changed so that I wasn't leading projects per se. I had two very good designers who worked with me at that point, who were senior and could lead projects. So we would get projects in the door. They would be assigned the work to move it forward, and I would have input as we got things set up. But as soon as that was done, I would be back looking for new work to, fill in those gaps in that typical sine wave in the sales load.
Right. So you talked about just just do it philosophy, and back yourself with information about education about how to sell and learn from people. But how did you get over that hump, though, of going out to a networking meeting or getting on the phone or meeting somebody casually and explaining and getting over that kind of fear factor?
Yeah, Bruce, I wish there was a recipe for that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's how do you get off a diving board? You gotta say, I'm going to do it. You walk up, and at one point in time, there's that moment where you decide whether you're going to commit yourself and go off. And I think networking events and calling, that whole call reluctance is there. Right. Now, like I talked about the 4-point system, I think there's some systems that you can put in place to help you overcome that. And you talked about like learning. I think inputs are very important. Like I've listened to a lot of Zig Ziglar and Jim Rohn, and there's ideas that come. Like it's really important to read and find new ways to approach things.
Right. There was something I remember that you talked about and how you help get yourself out of the spotlight by turning the conversation over to the prospect. Tell me more about that, because it's always struck me as really brilliant insight.
So we have to give credit where credit's due. We worked with an organization called Power Marketing, and they said the typical salesman does a show up and throw up. Meaning, hey,
that's true.
And from a designer perspective, it's like, hey, here's my portfolio. Do you want to see all the cool projects we've worked on and all the good things? And that's, when you get a job in design, that's typically how that goes. But the principal thing they taught us in that was, listen first, understand what the person's pain is from a business perspective. So we've completely changed how we sell. The first thing, if we can avoid doing the presentation until after we've heard them, then when we present, it's now tailored to what their needs are. So we want to solicit what the actual problem is, what there is. And sometimes, Bruce, will find that our service actually isn't a fit. Yeah. And then we'll end up with a referral or a lead, or we'll be able to refine our offer so it's a much better fit for them. And then when we are presenting, it's very tailored. You've
brought up a couple of really important points. One is you take the attention off yourself, the stress off yourself, because they're now talking about themselves. And the other part is having the sense of honor of saying, no, this is not a fit. Would you like to expand on that a little bit more about the psychology of getting people to do all the talking instead of you? Yeah, I mean, another Zig Ziglarism, he calls WIIFM everybody's favorite radio station, like what's in it for me, per se. And I don't think people are egotistical, but they are interested in themselves and their businesses and that. And, if you come in with a little bit of preparation, you look at their websites, sort of get a general idea of what it is, so you've got some intelligent questions. People are, they've taken the time to have a call or have a meeting. So they have enough of an interest in a problem that they need to solve. So with a little, I was going to say well-crafted. I mean, I just think simple, honest, and genuine questions. They'll start to tell you what their concerns are.
And as you answer, they'll start to gauge you and figure out if you're a potential fit.
Because I'm thinking intelligent questions demonstrate your capability.
Right. Yeah, yeah, that's true. Yeah, I mean, in the design process, we need to, I often talk about our ears being our most important design sense, right? As we figure out what it is a customer will need in the project. It's very similar in the sales process that if you've got especially highly tailored and custom professional services, you've got to listen and understand to make sure that there's a fit.
Right. Yeah. Those are great insight into your experience, and at the same time you've given people advice about what they can do and the things they're going to face every day, and it's going to be a great day one time and the next day not so wonderful.
Yes. Yeah.
So is there anything in wrapping up, Kent, of advice that you'd give to that new entrepreneur that you'd like to add to what you've had to say in summing up?
Yeah, I'd probably say, it's believe in yourself and what you're bringing to the market, right? I mean, often people in professional services, you've got years of professional training and often, learning how to do things and can solve real problems. So, I think it's easy to go in with the confidence to listen to people, understand their problems, and then know that you can solve them.
Right. Actually, you said something great right there in which you said problems. Don't assume that you know what their problems are.
Yeah.
So if you ask questions, keep on asking and probing, then you can discover what their problems are, and you can find out if there's a match.
Yes. Yeah, or even how you adjust your service for it. Because it's very easy to assume, hey, they need X, Y, Z, but I might think they need a product design per se, but as we talk to them, I might find out they've got an issue on the production floor, or they have a supply chain issue, and maybe there's a way we can offer product design to work around that, or maybe I'm actually better to refer them to somebody that can help them with that particular issue.
Right. So in the discovery, when you're first launching your business, you may discover that the way you thought the business needs to be delivered and what the person's going to want to get from you is not what you thought at all.
Yes, and maybe even sometimes, Bruce, that you're not a fit.
Yeah.
We call that the courageous no, meaning that often sometimes when you need to fill the business and have people busy in that, but if you're not a great fit, it's much better to say no and help them find a potential other solution. And we've found that people will succeed that way, or sometimes they'll try the other solution and come back and say, no, we've tried that. We actually think you're the place to get the business done, and you've won good credibility because they know you've got their best interests at heart.
But on the other hand, you can realize what they need is your product configured differently, or service configured differently, and you're able to deliver it, and that's what you discover, and you adapt to the market.
Yeah, you bet.
Good. Kent, so great to meet with you again and chat, and thank you for sharing your experience and your advice to entrepreneurs and new business owners and getting their foot in the door of sales and getting their product and service out to market and helping to make a difference in the world. Thank you so much for chatting.
You're welcome, Bruce.
Okay.